When you think of the countries that have made major contributions to animated filmmaking, which ones come to mind? The USA, Japan, France, Britain, hell, even China seems to be gunning for the top spot these days. But one country that I bet didn't pop into your head is Russia, which is a shame because historically speaking, it probably should. Whether it's the haunting beauty of Yuri Norstein's cutouts or Lev Atamanov's versatile 2D escapades, Russian animation produced some of the medium's greatest and most influential works throughout the 20th century. But of course, that was a long time ago. A time in which the country went by a different name. While there have been some quality projects post-dissolution, nearly all of the seminal Russian animated works were produced under the Soviet banner. And look, I'm no fan of the old hammer and sickle personally. My grandparents fled communist Cuba, a country whose regime was all buddy-buddy with the Soviet Union, just so I could one day eat unholy amounts of fast food and overpay for healthcare like a true American. But facts are facts, and I'd be lying if Soviet propaganda art didn't go stupid hard. The stamps, the posters, and that freaking anthem. Just shut up and take my property already. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the films, because they were no slouch either. You've got classic intro to film 101 material like Battleship Potemkin and Man with a Movie Camera, whimsical musicals like 1934's Jolly Fellows, and the second film in our series, 1935's The New Gulliver. A live-action animation hybrid retelling of Gulliver's travels, The New Gulliver stars Petya, a young pioneer who's gifted a copy of the classic novel and brings it to his scoutmaster for a group reading. Midway through, he falls asleep and dreams himself into the book's lead role as he shipwrecks ashore onto the island of Lilliput. Petya soon discovers that Lilliput has been overrun by greedy capitalists who abuse their working class under the rule of an incompetent king. And so, it's up to Petya to inspire the workers to revolt, seize the means of production, and something communist utopia, all that jazz. Now on the surface, everything about the story seemingly passes inspection. We get some background on our character that informs us on his beliefs, with Petya being a young pioneer, essentially a Soviet Boy Scout. We get to see our three central conflicts gradually ramp up in intensity, as the Lilliputian ministers gradually shift from wanting to use Petya as a weapon to straight up trying to murk him. Petya's suspicion and disapproval of the Lilliputian government grows, and the workers' resolve to fight the powers that be becomes ever stronger. And finally, everything comes to a head in a climactic battle as Petya heralds a new dawn for the freed Lilliputian Commonwealth. Rock solid foundation. But the core issue that I have with The New Gulliver is in how heavy-handed the film portrays its messaging. The Lilliputian king is so inept that he lip-syncs over pre-recorded phonograph messages when giving speeches, with an early scene involving a broken record bluntly proclaiming that he's cheating the nation. Petya's Russian homework is seen as a revelatory text that enlightens the laboring masses, with the film even revealing later on that Russian is the mother tongue of the workers. And perhaps most overtly, Petya sings the pioneer song from his troupe to the Lilliputian elites after they ask him to sing about the truth, and they all start having a collective meltdown as a result. Even Petya makes a direct call to arms for workers all around the world immediately afterwards, setting an example for all young pioneers who might be in the theater watching. It's about as in-your-face and one note as you can get, which to me is a shame because it didn't really need to take this route. Though movies like Battleship Potemkin and Man with a Movie Camera clearly have a propagandic message that they're trying to communicate, they do so by embodying said message through narrative and technique rather than overtly preaching it in a contrived and inorganic manner at every given opportunity. Because of this, you can agree or disagree with the sentiment of the film and still end up enjoying them as epic sagas or neat experiments, whereas The New Gulliver feels more like an elaborate lecture by comparison. And let me be frank, I feel this way about any piece of message-driven media that takes this ham-fisted approach. There are plenty of American cartoons both before and after World War II that irk me with their overly sanitized brand of patriotism. And as someone who grew up in a strict Christian household, trust me when I say there's a world of difference between a series like VeggieTales and Bible Man.
The full armor of God. Never leave home without it.
But let's not dwell on the new Gulliver's weakest link, because I'll be damned if this film doesn't deserve some major props for how it brought the Lilliputians to life on screen. As one of the earliest features to incorporate animation alongside live-action footage, the creative team certainly had their work cut out for them. Prior films that attempted to blend these two disparate mediums tended to do so in one of two ways. The first and most common method was to keep each element completely separate, only ever interacting with one another via quick cuts, clever staging and compositing, or having an element change mediums for a single shot. The second approach by comparison was a lot more complex, as it sought not only to achieve a more seamless merging of the two mediums, but to have them interact more frequently. This is Alice being completely engulfed by a cartoon world in Walt Disney's Alice comedies. These are the grenade-chucking, paw-stabbing, damsel-snatching antics of 1933's King Kong. And this is the genius blend of live-action, stop-motion animation, and mechanical puppetry employed in the new Gulliver. Though director Aleksandr Ptushko had experimented with these techniques before in short films like The Incident at the Stadium and Lord of Life, every one of these techniques are at their zenith here. For one, the integration of the stop-motion Lilliputians with Petya is really solid. At times opting to shoot him next to simple mechanical puppets, while in other shots they use a full-sized puppet of Petya to animate frame by frame. This sort of tactile interaction is huge because it sells that these characters exist on the same plane of reality, thus adding extra weight to Petya's actions towards these tiny people. And speaking of the Lilliputians, the animation on these little buggers is fantastic, especially during dialogue. Flat out, the facial expressions and gestures are among the best of this entire era of stop motion. The characters' faces vary greatly in terms of head shapes and sizes, facial features, hair, and dentition, providing the perfect canvas to exaggerate emotions and make the acting read as clearly as possible. Speakers make great use of their posture, making themselves appear more dignified or persuasive depending on the context. Hand and arm movements help further intensify their messages. Just look at this dude going full paisan and tell me it isn't some peak work. And the lip syncing is just phenomenal, miles above even future stop motion releases that we'll cover later in the series. But that's not where the great animation ends, because every once in a while the camera will start hurtling in and around the set and hit you with the sauce. Two sequences in particular stand out. One being this awesome tracking shot of a car that gives way to a pan and gradual zoom out within a weapons manufacturing facility. While the other is a frantic shot of the king clumsily racing up a spiral stairwell. These scenes are stunning, and while the more comedic animation may suffer by comparison with its inconsistent timing, speed, and unappealing use of motion blur, all of these qualities were actually quite common for the era, as seen in later films of this decade like 1937's The Tale of the Fox. But I'll save my thoughts on that movie for the next episode. Because with all that, we've reached the end of our review for the new Gulliver. It's a film with some seriously stunning animation that's blended beautifully with its live-action lead. And though I think the film could have handled its political themes more subtly to let its story and characters shine, I'm still glad I saw it. Moving on to my rankings, The New Gulliver was the lone animated film of 1935, so it gets to take home a shiny new participation trophy for its efforts. As for our multi-decade rankings, The New Gulliver ends up below Prince Achman and slots into the number 2 spot for now. Only time will tell if it stays there. This won't be the last propaganda film we cover in this series, nor will it be the last Gulliver's Travels adaptation, so I'm curious to see how they'll stack up against one another and fit into our rankings over time. And if you'd like to do the same, then check out The New Gulliver on YouTube for yourself and see what you think. But until then, thanks for watching.